Hey everybody, Giggins here, and I am so stoked to be a part of Classics Week to talk about one of my favorite albums of all time, an album offering for you, Sunflower by the Beach Boys. Sunflower finds the Beach Boys at an absolute peak of their creative powers and at a time of transition. They had just finished their contract with Capitol Records, who had been their home since day one, well, kind of since day one if you know the Beach Boys story, and they moved over to Warner Brothers Records, Warner REPRISE, and they had to prove themselves not just to a new label and a new recording contract, but to their fans. If you can believe this, one of the biggest bands in the world, and in America in the 1960s, the Beach Boys were massive. They had about 4 or 5 years there of absolute chart-topping success. They were the biggest thing going. They were the biggest rival to the Beatles. Every single they put out was a top 10 hit, numerous number ones, their albums did really well, their tours were extremely popular. They could do no wrong. And then came Pet Sounds. And Pet Sounds changed a lot, not just for the group, but for the way Capitol saw the Beach Boys. Pet Sounds at that time was widely accepted by music critics and a lot of fans, especially across the world. That was one of the first records to break in England for the Beach Boys in terms of like big chart success where other people's ears were perking up. Everybody was of course aware of Brian and what the Beach Boys can do, but when Pet Sounds came out, that was a whole other level of pop sophistication that had never been seen and realistically hasn't been seen ever since. But it really scared Capitol because they were like, how do we promote this thing? These are the surf guys. These are the lovey-dovey hook pop song guys. What do we do with this? These are all sad songs about happy things or happy songs about sad things, and there's a train at the end with dogs barking. How do we promote this? Well, they promoted it for a little while, then put out Best of the Beach Boys Volume 1, and that was basically the end of their tenure at Capitol in the 60s. It was rough. Their records were really not promoted the way they should have been, and even up until 1969, they were promoted as the #1 surfing group in the country, and they hadn't done surf in years at that point. So when their contract finally came to an end with Capitol, they had so much material ready to go. And when they secured their contract with Warner Brothers, they had even more material, because at this point, everybody was writing for the band. It wasn't just Brian. The great thing about Sunflower too is that you've had several years of the other guys owning their craft and getting better as songwriters. Al, Bruce, Mike, Denny, and Carl were contributing really great songs by this point. And when you get to the sessions for what became the Sunflower album, originally called Add Some Music to Your Day, this is some of the most incredibly dynamic, diverse, joyous, love-filled music they ever made. Sunflower represents more than just great music and a new recording contract. It signifies a rebirth for the band. You know, they take what they had learned and what they had done, obviously, but they incorporate so many new flavors and new textures that they hadn't done yet. And when you add on the production chops of the guys and engineering from Stephen Desper, you get a sound on this album that is angelic and harmonious and really, really atmospheric and beautiful. Nothing on this album was done for gimmicks or tricks. They really picked out the best of the best because they recorded so many songs for this project. And when they nailed down their final track list, they were so proud of this thing. Brian was 100% fully involved with the whole project because he hadn't been for 2020 after the failure of the Friends album, which he really loved. So Sunflower was the first really focused, really polished album they'd done in years. They had the session musicians come back and help out, which they had done through 2020 as well. But this was the first time that everybody was all in, firing on all cylinders to create some magic. And it went nowhere. It was their worst selling album at that point. It just didn't do anything. No one cared. The radio didn't care. They were old hat at this point. The most uncool thing you can do was to be in America and be a Beach Boys fan in 1970. Which is ironic because all these harmony groups were popping up at this time. Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. The Eagles were about to come out. The Hollies were still big even though Graham Nash had left. It was an amazing time for harmony groups, and yet the harmony group was forgotten about. Throughout the rest of the world, they were kings. They were humongous concert draws. Their albums sold super well, and Sunflower was a big seller in the UK. So let's talk about the songs themselves. The album opens up with Slip On Through, one of the grooviest, funkiest, glowing songs they ever did. Denny's voice on this thing is cool and sly, but also so full of love. The verses kind of have this funky rhythm that plods along awkwardly, but when you get to the payoff of the chorus with these glowing background vocals straight from the heavens, and Denny just wailing the lead vocal, what a payoff. At this point in the Beach Boys' career, they were doing a lot more underneath the lead vocal. They'd always done the bom 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 dip 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 kind of stuff in the background, but now they were incorporating other lyrics. So the chorus of Slip On Through is one of the most amazing things I've ever heard. Just the background vocals alone would have been enough. Super clean, tight production. It's an incredible opener, and it really sets the tone for what you're going to get from this album. Texture, dynamic, joy. This Whole World follows that one up next, and this is one of the cheeriest songs ever put to tape. Carl's lead vocal is pure magic. The way he belts it out, the way he reins it back in for a more softer delivery, the joy on this track is infectious. I have to give credit again to Stephen Desper and his engineering and the production the guys did, because this song sounds like what heaven might sound like. It's constantly fresh, and it's constantly optimistic, and it's constantly making you think of how good the world can be. And you look for all the good things that are out there, and you're like, you know what? Maybe the world doesn't suck so much. Add Some Music to Your Day is a very calm, patient meditation on the healing powers of music, and it's pretty much the cornerstone of this album. It's the foundation that the rest of the record was laid on, as the original name for Sunflower was Add Some Music. That line, music, when you're alone, is like a companion for your lonely soul. Man, that hits. An absolute mission statement of a song. It's a call to arms, like, you know, what if everything was okay because music exists? What if all the wars stopped? What if all the bad things went away because we have music? And isn't that enough? Got to Know the Woman comes up next, and that is a complete 180 for this album. It's funky, it's funny, it's definitely Denny. It's a groovy jammer with Denny singing about his adoration for a girl, and I love the descending melody lines that happen throughout this thing with some really good rolling toms throughout. It's a song that I think perfectly fits out of place on this record, because everything else on this album has more of a, I would say, beauty to it. This is more of a straight up rocker, but I kind of like that. You kind of have that juxtaposition of like really soft, beautiful things, and it's kind of nice to have a rocker on this one as well. Deirdre is a really sweet song about working through the hard times and looking for the happy times, looking for the optimism. It's mostly written by Bruce Johnson. He takes the lead vocal, but Brian helped out here and there, and you can tell the parts that Brian jumps in on. Cozy woodwinds and light brass accent the really nice, optimistic sounding acoustic guitars, peppy drums, there's a nice fluid, rubbery bass, and I like the xylophones on this one as well. It creates a nice, warm, cozy blanket of a song. It feels nostalgic, but it also feels very fresh at the same time. A very rare Wilson Johnston credit that almost sounds like it could be in a movie. It's got that cinematic quality. It's About Time rounds out side one, and man, this thing is a charged up rocker. Carl's lead vocal on this thing is just killer. Some screechy guitars, drums that are just totally wild, and an atmosphere of excitement and this palpable upstart energy to go out and create something great, create something peaceful and positive. This was a song they'd play a lot to close their shows back in those days, and they actually brought it back for a little while in their shows when the Feel Flows box set came out in 2021, which was really cool to see that live again. Kind of a deep cut. When you flip the record over, you get Tears in the Morning, and this song for me, it's a Bruce Johnson song, but I've never interpreted this song as about a relationship. I've always seen this song to be about the Beach Boys themselves. I've seen this as Bruce writing an autobiographical track about the band. When he sings, so you moved on up to Europe, and you know, you took your heart, you took your soul. It's like everything was going better for the Beach Boys everywhere else besides America. And you're kind of left with tears in the morning. You're like, you know, what are we not doing right here? Like, you know, everything we built over here, will that actually grow up? You know, is that the baby I'm ever going to see? Like, are we ever going to see things get better in America? Or do we have to go somewhere else for our dreams? There's great harmonies on this track as well, but Bruce's storytelling, the emotion in his voice really sells it for me. All I Want to Do, this song is the invention of chillwave, and I'm really glad that people have seen that over the last couple of years, because this song, the production on this thing is absolutely unreal. It's shimmering and glowing. It feels like a frosty lake or something. It's something that you would expect to hear as a common track from like the indie stuff of the early 2000s. It's one of those songs that I play for people often, and I don't tell them who it is, and they're like, wow, that's a really cool song. Who is that? Like, did that come out like in the 90s, or when did that song come out? Like, no, it's the Beach Boys from 1970. And they're like, what the hell? That dreamy atmosphere, and then the tons of layered vocals on this thing in the background. This thing is one not to miss. If you're gonna play at least one song that isn't Forever or Slip On Through or Cool Cool Water, put on this track. It's gonna blow your mind. Speaking of Forever, Denny takes lead on this one with one of the most beautiful tracks he ever wrote, one of the most amazing tracks the Beach Boys ever did. You know, a song about giving every single ounce of your soul to somebody and being so stoked. Again, the background vocals on this thing are just from the heavens, and hearing Brian sort of riff at the end as the song fades out is just wonderful, because he's got that, his voice is still so super sweet at this point, and you hear him sort of echo on into foreverness, if you will. It's something special. Speaking of something special, Carl takes the lead on Our Sweet Love, a song that could have been a really nice minor hit on the charts. This song for me feels like the grown-up, more mature version of God Only Knows, where I feel like God Only Knows is one of the most beautiful songs ever written, but it's almost written from like a new love kind of feel, and you want to give your everything to this new love. This song feels like you've been with that love, and you're appreciating the small things in life, the walks on a sunny day, reading the newspaper together, like just enjoying each other's company. This feels more mature. At My Window is what I call diet psychedelia. It's one of the coolest songs on the album, and I feel like it's the most slept on song. You know, it's from the point of view of a bird coming down to your window, and then you're kind of taken away with the bird. You're kind of seeing the world from the bird's point of view and realizing that things could be pretty freeing. We end with Cool Cool Water, one of my absolute top 10 favorite Beach Boys songs of all time. This Smile era track is the perfect closer for this album, and I think it's kind of a nice little slip in to be like, hey, we can still sing about water. This one literally falls into the actual waves at one point. You hear waves crashing, and you feel like you're underwater with a num 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 now num 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 now now part. You feel like you're like the density of the water and the heaviness of it that's surrounding you, until you come up and get your head above it. And all of a sudden there's like the bright blue sky. You see dolphins jumping around, like it's shimmering, it's glowing, it's happy. The track eventually gets to this drip drip mantra that's repeated throughout the rest of the song, but the articulation and the gentle, careful delivery of the vocals on this thing are something to be admired. Mike has one of the best lines in this song with the "in an ocean or in a glass, cool water is such a gas." So good. This is a track you need to experience, and I think it works better with headphones, but you know, putting it on a good stereo system works too. But there's so many intricate things happening in the layering on this song that even I've heard this song a million times over the last 20 odd years, I still hear new things on it, so dig that one. The Beach Boys' Sunflower is a wonderfully special album. An album that sounds like nothing else they did before or since. It was the band firing on all cylinders. They were all so hungry to create something special that would blow listeners' minds. And it's truly sad that in America, it just didn't click. Luckily, with new management and a new stage show, things would get much better with their next release, Surf's Up, which was their best charting album since 1967's Wild Honey, but that's a video for another day. Check it out. Add some music to your day. Add some Beach Boys to your day. My name is Giggins. Thank you so much for watching this on Classics Week here on the Needle Drop. Take care of yourselves.
Zishin. It's me. I'm in a scary place. I'm in the shadows. Scary. What did you think of this album? Have you heard it? You should. It's a good album. I listened to it after Doug recommended it, and I thought it was quite good. He was really accurate about that Chill Wave song. Anyway, over here next to my head is another video to check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, music review forever.